Hello, book connectors. Welcome back to the Book Connection. Visitors, should you happen to find the channel, feel free to join us. We'd love to have you here. Well, hello there once again, book connectors. Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Black Devil, and this time I am here with a video for the second book in the 7 Deadly Sins by Victoria Christopher Murray, and the title of this book is Envy. I guess I didn't know that I like working under pressure, because the video I posted Sunday of this week, which was Easter Sunday, April 5th, I said I wanted 2 videos up. One on my Music Connoisseurs channel. I got that one up and running last night. And now I'm on my favorite channel, if there can be a favorite, which is this one, The Book Connection. So let's see if I can get it up before midnight tonight. Let's go. Please excuse any background noise you may hear. I have my windows up and my ceiling fans going. I am loving it. It's not too cool or too warm. Okay, so as for the book Envy, I didn't know what to expect, because this is my first time actually reading this series. I didn't know if Envy was going to be a continuation of Lust. So I was pleasantly surprised when I found out that this is a totally different story. Here we go. Whitehaven, Arkansas. Keisha Jones is either 16 or 17. Her mother has been placed on hospice. She is passing from AIDS. She was a prostitute. She was only 40 when she died, but she was described as looking closer to 60. She had lost some of her teeth and hair and all that comes along with aging. Now, she was a prostitute. Her mother's name was Daisy. Daisy was a prostitute. But she did have morals when it came to her daughter. And it was mainly just the 2 of them. Neither of them had friends. Neither of them really could afford to go anywhere, do much of anything. Keisha, all her life, was raised there. But she didn't make friends very easily, because she didn't, want the secret to get out, although most people knew what her mom did, but they didn't bother her. The only thing, Keisha always wanted to know who her father was, and her mother always shut that down. So one day at school, the children, I think she was in like the 5th or 6th grade, and she comes home and she says, the kids were like, "Well, who is your dad? I never hear you say anything about your dad." She was like, her mom was like, "Did you tell him you didn't have a dad? Everybody has a dad. You don't," was her mother's response. So eventually, I guess we're talking about book time, she might have lived for maybe another 2 weeks, Daisy, that is. So when the nurse calls Keisha to come and get her mother's belongings and things, Keisha didn't want to take them. They were like, "You still need to go by the business office, because you need to tell them where to take your mother's remains." And she was like, "Y'all gonna have to get them. I don't have any money." And they were like, "Well, you can't leave her here, because if the state buries her, you won't know where she is." She was like, "Yes, I will. I always carry her wherever I go." And the nurse just pretty much insisted. She tried to take her mother's dentures, I guess, to throw them away, but the lady told her, no, don't bother those, I guess because of the germ or whatever. But she tried to give her a toothbrush. That girl's like, "Really? You won't let me get the teeth, but you'll let me get the toothbrush?" So the girl took her Bible, her toothbrush, her robe, and balled all of it up and threw it in the trash can. That shocked the daylights out of that nurse. But the mother had not paid rent in their apartment before she she got sick the last time, she couldn't pay it. And so Keisha, not really having any friends or being close to anybody, an adult or a teen or a child, she just slips around and stays in the apartment trying to dodge the landlord. Well, eventually, the landlord cut the water out because she knew that Daisy had passed away. She also knew Keisha couldn't pay the rent and stuff, so she just cut it out. She had yelled and told Keisha she was going to have to find somewhere to go because she had to get that apartment cleaned out so that she could rent it to someone else. Keisha did talk to this one guy. They called him Buck. He was around her age, maybe a couple of grades ahead of her, but she would talk to him. So she used to stay at his house. Problem was, it was so many. For you come from being an only child, and then now you're in a house of about 25. I imagine that is a bit overwhelming. And plus, she really didn't like to stay there because his father was there, and he would always try to grab Keisha, even though he knew that was his son's sometimes girlfriend. But that's how they met. Now, along the way, Buck and one of his cousins, they decided, because they were broke and this and that, although Buck did have a job working for Walmart, but Buck and his cousin they called Q decided they would just start scamming people, getting people's credit card information and just charging stuff. And so Keisha wasn't doing any of that. She did, however, start working at a beauty salon. She did graduate high school. She didn't know what she was going to do after she graduated. Now let's go on to Gabrielle Flores. Gabrielle Flores is a very successful young lady. She's married, and together she and her husband have a 5-year-old daughter, Bella. What's her name? Gabrielle, and her best friend Regan runs an ad agency. And so, like, all of the hot celebrities, if they're in California, worlds away from Keisha. But they have their own ad agency, and so all of the celebrities, whenever they have something to promote, a lot of times Gabrielle's agency is the one that sets all of that up, and they go do their press runs and stuff. Now, Gabrielle's mother, Mary, passed away 7 years prior. And her father, she was real close to both of her parents. She herself was an only child as well. That is until her father, Elijah, got a letter out of the mail one day. And turns out Keisha's mother, Daisy, had written a letter to Elijah telling him that she did not get rid of the baby, but she knew that he loved his wife, and her intentions were not to come between he and his wife. And she explained to him that she was passing, and her daughter really has nowhere to go. She has no other connections. And she just really wanted him to at least reach out to Keisha and, see what would ever become of that. So he calls Gabrielle over one morning before she went to work, and he had her to read the letter. She was shocked. She was floored. She just could not, because all she ever knew was that her parents were loving to each other and to her. And he explained to her that he, he did, what did he do? I know that he wasn't a minister, but he did something in the church, but then I think he also had he had started the, what you call it, when people drive trucks. I'm not talking about literally driving trucks and getting CDLs. I guess I would call it a trucking company. Well, that's what it is. His dad had just opened a new trucking company, but I can't remember how he made his money before he did that, because he had retired from one job, and then that's when he opened up the trucking company. So he told Gabrielle, after the shock had started to wear off, that, you rest assured your mother is the one I always loved. He said, but you were little, and we did not want you traveling the country like I used to have to do. I would be gone sometimes for, upwards of a week. Sometimes it just depended on where I went. I could come home in 2 days. You just never knew. But when I was down south, I always was in touch with her. And she did tell me that she was pregnant. And I asked her, what did she want to do? And he said, the decision, he would respect whatever Daisy wanted to do. And she said she wanted an abortion, but she couldn't afford to pay for it. So he gave her the money, and then she kept the baby. So now this baby is, I think, 17, and Gabrielle is 24. She read it, and then she went to work, excuse me, and called her best friend in the office and let her read it. The best friend was shocked. The best friend, actually, although she does work for the ad agency, she's also a lawyer. And so she was like, don't let your daddy fall for this. We're going to have to do a little bit more investigation to see if it's true and blah, blah, blah. So the two of them decided that since Regan was pregnant, and she still had a pretty good way before she gave birth, that Gabrielle agreed to send her to Arkansas to meet Keisha. And because Bella had a husband and a little girl. So that's what happened. And right from the start, Keisha, Regan, I would say more so than Keisha, they just were highly suspicious of each other. Regan over Keisha more so than Keisha with Regan in the beginning. But after she sat Keisha down and explained to her why she was there and let her read that letter that her mother wrote, it was in her, Keisha recognized that it was her mother's handwriting, and just the tone of the conversation sounds like her mom, so she didn't dispute that. But she wasn't sure, although she had no reason to stay in Arkansas, she wasn't sure if she was just ready to give up her darn near hand-to-mouth way of living in Arkansas to go see, if the world was better in California. So eventually she decides to go back with Regan. Now, Regan told Gabrielle on the phone that it was just something about Keisha. She just didn't trust her. She said, I can't quite put my finger on it. But see, Gabrielle was like, oh, no, you're probably thinking too much. She's not, she's scared. She doesn't know anything about us and blah, blah, blah. So Keisha does decide to go to California, so she sneaks and she got, because Regan had a room at the most, I guess you would call it, maybe 3-star hotel. It wasn't like a 5-star, but it was the best Arkansas, that town anyway, had to offer. And it was okay. But Regan tried to make it, not Regan, Keisha tried to make it seem like it was, she lived in an apartment, which she did, I guess you could say, since she had moved in with Buck after that lady cut the water off and padlocked the door. She did let her come get her stuff. But really, she was staying at that same hotel. Every day she got up and went to work. She knew she would have a place to lay her head. But she went in the bathroom and called Buck and was telling him rather, all about it. She comes out, and Regan is basically, Keisha almost hit her with the bathroom door, opening the door to come out. And Regan was like, so who are you talking to? Keisha was like, huh? And she tried to act like she wasn't on the phone with anybody. I don't know why Regan would even question her, because if this girl has lived there all her life, Regan doesn't know Keisha really doesn't have any friends. So for her to be on the phone shouldn't have surprised her. And then she calls and tells Gabrielle what she overheard or what she thought she overheard and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, well, just ask her if she wants to come. She doesn't have to stay. If she gets here and decides she doesn't like it, I'll see to it that she gets back to Arkansas. So that's how Keisha got to California. She goes to California. I think she was there for like a couple of days before they actually went to meet her father. She is staying with Gabrielle in her palace, and it just talks about all of the splendor. You have the ocean view pretty much from any room you're in. And it's like a 3-story, I think it's 5 bedrooms. Yeah, it was, because I can remember Keisha asking Gabrielle, why did they need 5 bedrooms? It's just them and Bella before Keisha came. And she was like, well, we plan to have more children. And so we just thinking ahead, blah, blah, blah. She gets on the phone and talks to Buck, telling him, describing the house. And he was like, oh, wow, you need to record yourself walking through that whole house and explaining room for room when you go in there. I just cannot imagine the high ceilings, the fancy railing in the bedroom and all of that. She was like, I'm not going to do that, but I will tell you for that fine. I was like, well, good for you, Keisha. No, you don't want to do nothing like that. Stuff happens. Well, this goes on, and when they do meet the dad sits her down and explains to her basically what she had already surmised from the letter, which is that he didn't know her mom kept her. He explained to her that he told her whatever she wanted to do was okay with him. If she wanted to have the baby, okay. But she said she didn't. Then I gave her the money, and you know, now you're here. And I don't begrudge her for that. So they sit and they have their moments. They talk and stuff. Well, it's still not going so well between Regan and Keisha. Regan is like the sister that Gabrielle never had. I mean, you just saw one, you saw the other. And it was that way all the way growing up. So when they went over to Elijah's for dinner that first day, Keisha thought it was just going to be Bella and her husband, Mauricio, and Bella, and, you know, the dad, Elijah. Well, in comes Regan and her husband. And so they're just talking, and Keisha's like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know. She seems to know more about y'all than I do. We can't have any privacy, so they made it through the dinner or whatever. Now let's move along. some big time rapper was in the area. He was getting ready to release an album. So you know how they have to do the press junkets and stuff. And Gabrielle's agency is the one that organizes and sets all of his promo work up. Keisha just loved that guy. Did I just say his name was Justice? Not Justin, but Justice. So Keisha was so excited, and she just couldn't wait. She knew she had to be his #1 fan, and blah, 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 blah. She was so excited to know that she would actually get to meet this man in person. The man comes in, and Gabrielle sends her on a coffee run. She sends her to Starbucks to pick up a cup of coffee for Justice. So Keisha didn't like that so well. She didn't. So her husband, Bella's husband, Mauricio, came to surprise her because he knew that guy was going to be there. He didn't know he was going to be. He was there at that same time that the guy was. So Keisha was kind of crying to herself. Mauricio was like, "What's wrong? Don't try to hide it. I see you crying," and blah, blah, blah. She told him that she thought she would meet Justice. Instead, Gabrielle wanted her to go pick up a cup of coffee and bring it back, and told her exactly how he liked it. Well, unbeknownst to Keisha, Justice is a thorn in Mauricio's side. Justice and Gabrielle dated at one point in time, but apparently Mauricio just never did. He just never trusted Justin. Why do I keep saying Justin? I mean, his name is Justice. But anyway, I don't know if it's that he didn't trust Justice or if he didn't trust Gabrielle. But Justice was a thorn in his side. So he took Keisha to go get the coffee and drops her back off at the office. Gabrielle comes home that night. She didn't say anything, and Mauricio didn't say anything, probably for about 2 weeks. Then, one day, it all comes out. And she was like, "Mauricio, you know, any and everything that ever could have taken place between Justice and I was like 100 years ago. I keep telling you that there's no reason for you to be suspicious of either one of us. Me, well, I know you shouldn't be suspicious of me. You know who I come home to every night, blah, blah, blah." This went on. And I don't think he ever really just accepted that what Gabrielle was saying with regard to Justice was all the way true. But he did tell her that he didn't appreciate her sending Keisha out on a coffee run, knowing that Keisha had been talking all the week prior to him coming, that she wanted to meet him. And that, so she wouldn't apologize to Keisha, or she was going to apologize to Keisha. But Keisha and Bella had become very, very close. So this particular night, Bella was asleep in Keisha's room. And when Gabrielle went to the door to apologize to her and get Bella and put her in her bed, she overhears Keisha whispering to Bella, calling her "night child." Night child, because after that happened with Justice, Keisha, she decided a whole nother course she was going to take. She was going to try to take Gabrielle down through there, because now when she did that to her with Justice, Keisha felt like, she just wanted to throw all of her money and her prestige up in Keisha's face. So she didn't say anything to Keisha. She just left. Well, she just came in and told her she came to get the baby. And she put her in the bed. So I guess it was like another week or so I'm trying to move this on. But Keisha and Gabrielle had to talk, and she apologized. She said, because Keisha gave her a job. Not Keisha. Gabrielle gave Keisha a job at the ad agency, and that ticked Regan off. And she already didn't care for Keisha, but then Gabrielle gave her a job without talking it over with her first. That made Regan mad with Gabrielle, but I guess they got past it. All right. Gabrielle one Sunday arranged for Justice to be at the church, but it was going to be a private dinner. It was just supposed to be Gabrielle, Mauricio, Bella, Keisha, Elijah, Regan, and they never named Regan's husband, but all of them were supposed to be there, and they were. And but this go around, Justice had a totally different attitude. It was all about Keisha that day. And Keisha was like, well, I don't understand why the sudden change. And Justice said, well, Gabrielle talked to me when I was there at the office. And I'm sorry that happened. I didn't even know you were there or who you were. And so she said it hurt her feelings, so I just put what I had scheduled on hold because I wanted to make it right with you. And so they made up, but that doggone Mario was still, that's hard, Mauricio. I guess that's my first time ever hearing that name. Mauricio, he wasn't trying to hear nothing Justice said. But, there was no words said, no looks or anything, no physical confrontation or anything. But after the dinner, Keisha felt better about Gabrielle. Keisha, she was trying to cause her niece to turn on her mother. She had started telling Bella to call her mommy. And she said, I can't call you mommy. I already have a mommy. She said, well, you can call me mommy. You just have to do it when no one's around. No one can hear you call me mommy. And I'm thinking at 5 years old, even if the little girl agreed to it, eventually she would have slipped up. Shoot, I probably would have slipped up at 25 and said mommy out loud and have everybody looking at me crazy. But anyway, Bella never did slip and call her. So eventually, Regan and Keisha finally have their big blow up. Now, Regan is almost due to have the baby at any given time. By the time all of this happens between Keisha, Gabrielle, Justice, Regan is just going on working, doing whatever she needs to do. Well, then, Keisha and Regan got into, I just cannot remember what that particular argument was about, because I've read so many books since then, but all I can tell you is this. There was a physical confrontation. Keisha ends up knocking Regan down a flight of stairs, and it caused her to miscarry. So now she's sitting in jail. She's refusing to see any lawyers. She wouldn't see Gabrielle, her dad, Justice. She wouldn't see anybody. And the dad kept sending different lawyers there. And she finally said, I deserve whatever punishment I get because I caused this lady to lose her baby. And so when the trial happens, finally minutes before the trial was to start, some man that her father, yeah, he is her father. Finally, some lawyer that her father knew came, and he represented her. So, where she was looking at anywhere from 20 to life, she ended up doing 3 years. But before the sentence was handed out, the judge asked her if it was anything she wanted to say to anybody, because Regan was there. And she turns and she looks dead at Regan, and she apologized, and then she just broke down crying and saying, the baby was innocent. The baby didn't have anything to do with what we had going on. And you might not believe me, but I would never intentionally hurt you or your unborn child. And she just cried. And then everybody came by and they forgave her, or they said they did. And even Regan forgave her as well. And the judge gave Keisha 3 years. And they were like, with good behavior, you may not do all 3. So this is how the book ended. She did have to serve time because of what she caused her sister's best friend. She lost the baby. But she still apologized. I feel like it was a sincere apology, but it wasn't going to right a wrong or damage. And as young as Keisha was or is, by this time she may have turned 18. So she still had a lot of time to try to change her way of life when she got out. I hope she did. So this wraps up this book called Envy. It is the second book in the 7 Deadly Sins by Victoria Christopher Murray. There is also another series called 7 Deadly Sins by someone named Wasserman is her last name. What is it? Robin Wasserman. But I don't think I would like that one because I think he dealt more or less with sci-fi stuff or fantasy stuff with kings and Greek gods and all that. So I'm probably not going to read that one. But this one is more my speed. I like human relationship books and stuff. So, like I said, this wraps this particular video up. I will have it up well before midnight. And then I will start on book 3, which is Greed. See what this is going to turn into. So, subscribers, thank you so much for being subscribed. Visitors, please do not forget to join us if you like what I have to say. And then everyone, please don't forget to like, share, comment respectfully. And make sure those notification bells are set to off so you'll know every time I upload another video. And in the meantime, book connectors, remember this: as long as there are books around, there is always something to read. And until we read again, book connectors, be safe out there. Have a great night, and God bless.